Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, discussing all things audiobooks with the authors that write the stories and the narrators that perform them. Brought to you by Viviana, Enchantress of Books.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast. Today, I am chatting with author Maddox. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, and I'm so excited to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been writing, how you got started.
So I've been writing since 2018. Well, it's one of those questions, like I've been writing since I was a kid, but I haven't published since 2018. So there's that answer. But I write LGBTQ, primarily like male romance, with crazy shifters. Like I prefer to do like wild and crazy stuff when it comes to my storylines. Like I've got a series about dinosaur shifters. I've got a Wild West centaur romance. I'm working on a new urban fantasy. So that's kind of my bag. Dinosaurs is, I think, what I'm probably most known for is my dinosaur romances. And I'm a huge paleontology nerd, and I put a lot of that love into that series. That's something that I've had just as long as my passion for writing is my love for dinosaurs. So that's kind of where that came from. But yeah, I'm a lover of all romance, but I tend to lean more on the gay romance side. That's like what I like to consume the most. That's what I like to write. So that's kind of me in a very rough nutshell.
Well, I love your potential explanation as far as the dinosaurs didn't technically go extinct. They just are shifters, and they decided to not be in dinosaur shape for a while, right?
Basically, yeah. Like in the lore that I had set up in the Relic series, they're like shifters that have always been able to take different forms. Like their life forms that have been around since the beginning of time, and they just hopped from form to form as they needed to. And then when the big impact hit in the Cretaceous, they turned into these tiny little pre-mammal things, burrowed under the ground and went to sleep for 65 million years. And when they woke up, they jumped into a human form, but they couldn't really go backwards all the way. So now they're only limited to their human side and their last previous dinosaur form that they connected with the most. So that's how I was able to manipulate that in my brain. Because otherwise it's like, I guess I could technically make them birds, but birds are awesome, but I want a T-Rex.
Yes. Yeah. I love it when, authors create their world and do their world building, but still provide us with some form of information as to how you be here. How did you become?
Yeah. Give me some backstory. Is it magic?
Just a little
cursed?
bit. Yes.
Give me something.
So, you had touched about how you love consuming the LGBTQ, specifically romance, but what is it about that genre as a whole, and then specifically as that you love about so much that not only do you love reading and consuming it, but you also love writing it?
It's a tricky question because I don't know if I have a definite answer to that. It's one of those things that the first time I read an novel, and I want to say my very first one was called Cut and Run by Abigail Rue. And I picked it up on a whim. I think somebody recommended it. And it's this thriller gay romance. And I had never read anything like that before. I had dabbled in some yaoi and BL manga back in the day, but I never read a truly Western romance with two boys. And I don't know why, but I got to the first kiss scene and I was like, this is it. It just connected. I loved it immediately. And I think if I try to dissect it to really unpack what it is about romance specifically that spoke to me, I think it was about 2016 or so is when I really started consuming a lot of it. And I was kind of struggling with my own sexual identity and my gender identity and things like that. And I think reading that LGBTQ romance, even though it's just gay men, they're both cis, it's pretty straightforward romance. It kind of allowed me to mentally explore that side of myself. So after a couple of years of consuming mostly, gay romance, and I dabbled a little bit into sapphic stuff, I was able to kind of understand more about myself. And a couple of years later, I think right when I started publishing, I realized I was pansexual. And, to this day, I'm still kind of I'm not 100%, I think, cis. Like I'm leaning more by like non-binary every day. Like I still am very comfortable with she, her. So that's who I am, but right now, but it's being okay with that fluidity and like really just allowing myself to explore that, I think is one of those, like, it was that quiet click of the key that I needed to like be like, this queer thing, maybe I'm that. Like, it was just one of those things that I think it allowed me to remove myself from the romance. Because when you're reading, when I was reading het romance, and I always try to associate myself with the female character, I kind of got like wrapped up in that. But reading it as two men, it kind of like let me step back a little bit from it and be like, I don't know, kind of explore that side of myself a little bit. So of course, that part of it is also why I wanted to start writing it, because I could play with these gender roles, these relationship dynamics that are the same as what I'm used to. I'm married to a man. I've been in a straight relationship for, I think, like 10 years up until that point. So it was able to really help me explore that. And, I've been kind of going for it ever since.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I love the genre because it's allowing everyone to kind of feel and be seen and more normalized that, this is what the real world looks like anyways, except for the dinosaur shifters.
Hey, we can hope.
Right? We can hope, right? It would significantly be more an interesting world if they were that the case. But again, it's just one of those genres that now is beginning to become more and more popular, especially within romance community.
Right.
Where, there's different camps as to the why and everything, but what we all see and have in common is we just love the love story.
Right. Yeah, that's what it boils down to. It's seeing love stories, all different types, all different angles that they can come from, all different relationship dynamics and identities. And it's just, when you boil it down to the bare bones of what it is, we love love. We love that connection to another person, no matter how it is shaped and formed. And I love love stories, and it's just something I'm extremely passionate about, and something I connect to immediately. If anything we watch, if there's even like an inkling of a love story, I'm 100% committed. Like my husband always just like rolls his eyes and looks at me. He's like, "You're already shipping them, aren't you?" I was like, "Yes, I love them." No matter what we're watching, like everybody has to fall in love in my eyes.
Or to have some form of that connection with someone else. Yeah, I always find.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm always like, okay, where is this going?
Right.
Did I see that look among the friends in the background, secondary characters?
Yeah, secondary characters, please. I'm all about it.
Yeah. Do you find that when you're writing a story, especially for the first book in a series, that are you already planning the entire series, or you're saying, oh, this is a good story, and then the characters start coming more and more like, oh, now the secondary character wants more airtime?
Man, I think it changes depending on the series. Like I want to say that I think everything I've written so far, I've been so confident I knew what the hell I was doing. And then I got like halfway into the second book or something, and this secondary character just leans full ass in front of my face and is like, "Hey," like just immediately I'm like, "All right, yep, you're getting a book. I didn't see that coming, but here we are." So yeah, and I never seem to stick with not even, I was going to say meticulous plan, but I'm lying to you. my outlines are pretty rough as it is. But yeah, secondary characters typically pop up when I least expect it. And I'm like, great, I have to figure out a novella for you or something.
There's always something, either they have a great line, or they're helping save something, or they're helping the main characters be who they want to be with whom they want to be with, and you're going, but what about you?
Right. Yes. God, especially when they're just charming as hell and you didn't see that coming. Like I've got a character that recently popped up who's a non-binary microraptor, and they were honestly supposed to be like a throwaway character, and yep, they're not. Like, okay, well, you're in it now. We're going to figure out what to do with you.
A lot of authors have said that that the characters come to them almost as if they're like a real person and they literally like up in front of them, as you sort of mentioned before. Is that with all the characters? Do you have them talking to you in your head and literally saying, hello, my turn?
I think so. Yeah. I wouldn't say like a one for one. Like I definitely met people where they're like, they've actually hear them like straight up talking to them, which I'm so jealous about. I think that's amazing. Mine's more like that story's just like knocking on the back of my skull. Like I'm trying to focus on, so-and-so, but this dude from 2 stories ago that is a minor character has been like, but what if you did like a Grumpy Sunshine with my character? I'm like, oh, like I'm weak for those. I'm trying to focus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So aside from knowing that they're going to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex or Velociraptor, type of, dinosaur, where do you get the ideas for the stories themselves?
So since I'm a huge paleontology nerd, I listen to I Know Dino podcast, and it's Garrett and Sabrina are the hosts, and they are delightful, and they bring just the coolest paleontology news weekly, and I devour it. So usually I will be listening to their newest discoveries about various fossils in different regions. But the ones that really get under my skin is when they talk about the fossils that have been poached or that are on the black market. It's the central theme to my Relic series because it's such a huge passion of mine, is repatriating stolen fossils to their countries of origin. Like there's a fabulous story about Nicolas P. Cage buying a Tyrannosaurus skull for like some obscene amount of money, like $2 million or something. It was this beautiful, complete Tyrannosaurus skull. Well, it was stolen from Mongolia. Like he got it off the black market. Unbeknownst to him, he didn't realize it was stolen. I mean, he was just like, that's cool, I want it. So I'm not like, he's not a bad guy. He just had a lot of money and wanted a skull. But it was stolen from Mongolia. So the head of the Institution for the Study of Mongolian Paleontology, who actually works out of, I believe, the New York Museum sometimes, the Museum of Natural History, she campaigned to get it repatriated. She was like, it doesn't belong in the US, like it needs to come back to Mongolia. This is a Tabarosaurus skull, and it doesn't belong to you, basically, like you have no right to have it. So it was this huge legal battle, and she eventually won, and he had to give it back, and it was repatriated back to Mongolia so they could study it, because they actually have a beautiful, thriving paleontology department and culture there where it's celebrated. It's one of the best places for paleontology in the world. And so she was able to get it back to her country, and poor Nicolas Cage was just stuck like, $2 million in the hole with nothing to show for it. So I feel bad, but I love that story. So I wanted to take that and make it into a team of badass dinosaur shifters who their entire goal is to get stolen fossils and put them in the hands of museums where they belong. So they steal them from rich people who just want to show off and give it back to science, because they want people to understand who they were at one point and understand the history of the world. So that's where I get my inspiration, is every time I hear about fossils not being treated the way that they need to, and ripping away knowledge from humans as far as like what the world once was. I'm like, that needs to be a story, and there needs to be hot guys. So yeah, I'm very passionate about it. I love that.
Yeah, I just love how you are pairing up the importance of sharing that knowledge, letting the story tell itself, but also hot guys.
Yeah, I mean, if we could just get some sexy people in there, as well as like encouraging scientific discovery and history, then woohoo!
Right?
All the check boxes.
Absolutely. No, I agree. It's interesting though how those are some of the stuff that we do as human beings, in a way of, because I know a lot of celebrities or individuals that can afford it. Their main goal is to have something nice or historical in the house or in their possession. And many times I'm like, but it wasn't yours. You bought it now, but it was taken from somebody else before.
Right. It's definitely not just dinosaurs. Like it's real bad with human culture. Like, ooh, you want to get me mad. Like, you know what I mean? Like that stuff just boils my blood. And I can understand where they're coming from, because like you said, they have the money, and it's more of like, they're just trying to have something wonderful to show to people. And I can understand being a collector of artifacts and things like that. But when it boils down to it, it's not yours. And honestly, it should be in a place where we can collectively learn about it as a species and not just hoard it away in somebody's living room because they think it looks nice. Like, come on,
Yeah.
no, do better.
Yes, totally. I do love it when I hear those stories, though, that the celebrity or the person that ended up purchasing then turns around and donates it
Yes, I
to a
love
museum or returns it to its rightful owner, whether it's a institute or a family or member or so on and so forth.
Yeah,
those are always
for
good
sure.
feel stories.
Mhm.
With your stories and romance as a whole, there's always that moment where the characters either meet for the first time or they've been friends, because we have the tropes, enemies to lovers, so on and so forth. And
Right.
there's so many different scenes in between the the beginning and the end. What is your favorite type of scene to write?
Oh, that's a good question. Dang. So I think I'm still very much an enemies to lovers diehard. Like Grumpy Sunshine's chasing it down pretty fast. But enemies to lovers there's just something so explosive about that relationship. So I really love a really good enemies to lovers where you've got that really just visceral, mean shithead and like kind of a charming, like cocky, flirty guy. And they just hate each other, but like they're needling at each other for this, like, a couple chapters. And that turning point that when you get to write the scene where so fun, because it's that moment of realizing like, oh crap, he's hot. You know what I mean? Like that,
Yeah.
like I hate this guy, but he's charming, even though it gets me in a way that I don't think other people get because he's been like just messing with me for days or whatever. So I think that's my favorite moment, is that not even like the first kiss or anything, even though those are great, but it's that moment of like, oh crap, like that's my favorite, like that switch has flipped in one of their brains and maybe the other guy hasn't even made it that far yet. So and then of course it's awkward and ridiculous after that, and it's so good. But I think that's my favorite part, is when you finally get somebody to like cross that threshold and they don't want it to be where they are.
Mm-hmm. And I love it too when they even argue with themselves, anybody else but them, anyone else.
Right.
And,
Yes.
and you as a reader and the listener are going, too bad, so sad.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just get on with it. Like, where is this gonna go? And that's the other thing too, because at the end of the day, we know we're gonna get a happily ever after. And it's mostly
sure.
about the journey of how they get there that it is for us in the romance community, about, versus the ending. And I think sometimes that's like thrillers, like the whodunit is usually the end. But for us, we're like, how'd they get there?
Right. Yeah, it's definitely the journey, because of course they're going to end up falling madly in love and doing the sexy times and all that good stuff. But it's all the lead up and the banter and snark and everything that folds into the story is, I think, what makes it so much fun. And then of course, because like if you've got a good author who really builds that up, when they finally tumble into bed together or whatever the romance is, it's so great. You're just like, yes, I can't wait. I'm so happy.
Mm-hmm. Are you the type of author that writes everything in chronological order, or are you jumping around and even include sometimes where maybe add fight scene here instead of writing the scene, or add sex scene there? Or how is your writing path for the stories for you?
So I'm very linear, which is a pain in the ass. Like I'm so jealous of the authors who can be like, I don't really feel like writing the scene right now. I'm not in the headspace. So I'm just going to put like, come back to this and then jump ahead and write the scene that they're feeling right now. My brain does not let me do that. And it's just, I hate it. Like because everybody runs into that block where you're writing like a transition scene, or like you're supposed to be writing a sex scene, but you're tired. I don't even want to deal with this right now. Like I'd rather somebody be punching somebody in the face right now, or them like just talking or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially for romance authors, everybody knows sex scenes can be very involved and hard to write sometimes, where I'm like, I don't know how many times I need to put, like, is there another word for cock? I've said this like 17 times. I need to come back to this, I get it. I just wish so bad that I could just put a spacer and come back, but it never seems to connect correctly when I do that. Like it feels disjointed. So I have to write linear, and it sucks because if I get blocked or if I don't want to write the scene right now, then I just don't write, which is the worst. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, all right, I guess I'm done for the day. Like I got to get my head back on gear. So this is just a crap day for writing, which happens to everyone, but
yes.
Man, those are the worst.
Yeah, especially when you're if you're writing linear and it's like going great, everything's moving along, and like, oh man, you know, that's I think the worst part when it's that sort of linear writing. I can imagine because you're like you have everything going, you have the flow, but then that stops. But it's also nice to know that you too get tired and may have a headache as far as not wanting to write that sex scene just because you're not in the mood for it. In the book as well.
Right? I was about to say, like, oh yeah, I mean that happens to everyone on page and off page. I'm like, I'm tired.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No sexy time now. What made you decide to put your titles in audio format?
So the narrator of my books, Kurt Graves, is actually a friend of mine. We met, oh my goodness, a couple years ago. I met him as a fan. Like I met him because I'm a huge fan of TJ Klune, and Kurt narrated the Wolf Song series, or the Green Creek series. Sorry, Wolf Song's the first one. So I highly recommend that series. Beautiful, wonderful gay storyline, gay romance with werewolves, and it's lovely. So I got to meet Kurt years ago at GRL, which is Gay Romance Lit Retreat, and he was like one of those stars there. And so I got to meet him, and he was, of course, wonderful. And from there, we kind of kept in touch and like had like an online friendship kind of thing. But just by pure happenstance in 2020, me and my husband moved from Texas into Wisconsin, and Kurt lived in the same city that we were moving to, just pure serendipitous. And I was like, hey man, move into your town. So when I arrived, it was a weird time because I didn't know if my day job was going to keep me remote. And so I didn't really have somewhere to go outside of my apartment to like really work. He had set up a little place in his office to let me squat basically, and like had a desk for me. He like two of my dogs had passed away before we moved, and he had like these mounted framed pictures of my dogs. It was like the sweetest thing that I'd ever seen. It was just amazing. Like he's the most amazing human being alive. So when I finally reached a point in my author career where I could get some audiobooks produced, Tantor picked up the rights for the Relic series. So I like demanded, I was like, I won't sign unless you give them to Kurt. Like I want Kurt to do all of my audio because one, he's a freaking great human being and I love him. And two, he's an amazing narrator. Like if you listen to Under the Whispering Door or any of the Green Creek books, you will sob like a baby because like TJ's writing is amazing and Kurt sells it. Like he's an amazing performer and that man makes me cry so much. So it's a weird, unique circumstance when it comes to that I was fortunate enough to be friends with the narrator I've always wanted. So just one of those things that's really cool.
Yeah. Now that as you continue to write and more books get into your different series, and are you thinking about having them all be in audio? And if so, looking potentially at different narrators that fit the characters, or what does that look like for you in your head?
So my goal is to try to get everything in audio, but it's one of those tricky things because I know not all of them are going to be like for the Relic series. I was fortunate enough that Tantor picked up the bill because audiobooks are so expensive to produce, which they should be because, you know, narrators are, you pay them for their talent and their time and their production. So I'm all about like paying narrators what they're worth, but it's pricey. It's very expensive. So when me as an indie author, I have to either hope somebody picks up the rights or I have to pay for it myself. So I have a complete, my Wild West Centaur series is great and I love it, but it like doesn't make enough money for me to justify the cost of putting it in an audiobook. But I've got another book that's a standalone that sells really well called Ethan and Jag Destroy the World. And it's about a human who accidentally summons a demon and like calamity breaks out. That one has made enough to where I'm like, okay, it pulls in enough sales to where I can actually get it turned into audio. And since Kurt is wonderful with voices and he's an actor, so he can do different dialects and accents and things like that, I plan on using him for as much as I possibly can, as long as his availability allows it and I can afford him. So that's my plan, but it's always one of those, I am open, like if I've got, if conflicts happen or another narrator comes up that maybe would be a better fit. But honestly, I can't imagine somebody like being a better fit than Kurt. I mean, it hasn't happened to me in my brain yet. So my plan is to hopefully just lock him in as my narrator.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's who I use.
There's so many different opportunities now, I think, versus 4 or 5 years ago when it comes down to having the audios made. And there's so many more resources and information. Yes, they're still pricey, but there's different ways to go about it where everybody is happy at the end of the day.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons too why I'm really looking forward to the Allure event in September that you're going to be going to.
Yeah. I'm really excited. I am excited I always love meeting other authors and networking and of course, probably buying way too many books and Audible credits so I can download.
Wait, is there such a thing as too many books?
I've been told that, but I have yet to find that too many threshold.
I know, right?
But yeah, definitely networking with the narrators. I mean, I never say never kind of thing. Like I hope to always use Kurt for everything, but like if I pivot into writing FF or sapphic romance, I mean, I'm going to need a female narrator for that, so I'm definitely going there with a business cap on and hoping to make some connections and meet some amazing talent on both the author and narrator side.
Mm-hmm. As well as the readers and the listeners that are going to, because this is the first event of its kind in that it's focused specifically on the audiobooks.
Yes, this is really cool. I've never seen anything like this before, and audiobooks are really, really taking off. Like they're way more accepted into the lexicon. People are a lot more willing to consume that media, whereas before, I think it was, I guess because there's so much more talent now, like being involved in the process and so many more authors being able to produce those books into audiobooks, either by, royalty share or, a company picking up the production rights and things like that, that you have so many more options now. Like I think, back in 2016, when I first started going into MM romance and was consuming that content, there weren't a lot of books, but now it's like, cup runneth over. There's so many like amazing gay romance audiobooks out there with just crazy talent. So it's just readers and listeners, or however you want to classify them, like they have just a plethora of different things that they can enjoy and different genres that they can dabble into now, which is just so cool.
Yeah. And finding new authors because they may love a narrator, or the other way around, discovering a new narrator because they love an author, is such a, feeding of the love in each other as far as the community goes, because there's just so many new discoveries that you can find in the different genres and the tropes, and then again the authors and the narrators. But this event, I think, is going to be really also a good time to learn a little bit more about what that process looks like of having the titles turn into audio and making it so everybody knows that there are affordable ways to still get this done. You just have to do a little bit of that, looking at what works for the individual as far as the author goes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. There's tons of options. I mean, there's a lot more now than there used to be, for sure. So absolutely. I'm looking forward to the panels and the, basically peeking behind the curtain and being able to see how like on the back end, what it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah. That's also why I love it when the narrators give us a little bit of like in the booth sessions.
Yeah, that's always really fun.
Yeah. Or even that process of like, hey, we're writing the books for you guys. And, when you're sharing and you're even including some of us in the sense of asking your readers about a name and what you should name the dog, or should they have a dog or a cat? It's always fun. And then have you ever asked the fans, like, what dinosaur do you want to see next?
I have not done one where they get to vote on the dinosaur, because I'm kind of an ass and I'm very picky about which part of the Cretaceous I will allow the pull to be from. So if I open it up and someone's like a Stegosaurus, and I have to be that asshole that's like, actually, they're from the Jurassic, so I wouldn't be a member.
Well, you can provide them with a pick between the following three that
Yeah,
you're
that's
okay
probably,
with.
yeah, I think that's, if I was going to do it, I would have pre-written answers. It'd be like, you can pick from this selection that I would be enjoying. So maybe in the future, I'm hoping down the road of doing like a Patreon kind of situation. So that might be one of those things where it's like, hey, like if you're at a certain tier, you can vote on who the next, like what the next shifter is going to be, kind of thing. Because I think that would be fun. My readers are delightful goofballs. Like I've got a reader group on Facebook that's 99% just like dinosaur memes and hot guys. So it's like my favorite place in the world. And it's just so good. So yeah, I think if I was going to allow my ridiculous people to vote, I need to give them structure. Otherwise it's going to go nuts fast. And that's why I love them.
Yeah. Structure is good. It's important to have. I mean, we have to have parameters. But yeah, I mean, who would have thought that many years ago when Jurassic Park came out, that potentially there will be things like memes and sexy guys put together for dinosaurs. It's just not.
It's a wild world we live in.
Yeah, which is great. And I love it because it allows us to, again, escape and figure out, but also, again, those individuals that are, love dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah.
It's
crazy because when I put the first one I did was Smash and Grab, and honestly I put it out there and it was like, this is my passion project, I'm going to throw it out there, see what happens. Like I didn't even put that much marketing into it, like really just like threw it out there. And it was one of those things that I didn't realize how many other like female readers within the genre were also dinosaur kids. Like the Venn diagram is a circle. It's insane, right? So I had so many, not just women, but just people in general who would reach out and be like, I was the dinosaur kid. Like I loved Jurassic Park and Land Before Time. And it was like, it just spoke to them. And I was like, oh my God, these are my people. Cause like, I was that kid, right? I was the dinosaur kid. I had Land Before Time stuff and Jurassic Park sneakers and crap growing up. And I grew up and loved gay romance. So I was so delighted that there were so many dinosaur people who they read Smash and Grab, loved it, and like binged all the Jurassic Park movies again because it made them nostalgic for it. I was like, yes, I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, it's when that happens, that's the magic that I call it. That's magic.
Yes, it is magic.
Yeah. And creating the community and having that like, oh, I'm not the only one feeling. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It was just so cool. And it's like the reader group just being just dinosaur nerds and gay romance. I couldn't ask for more. This is the best.
Yay. That's fantastic. When you're not working and building these lovely worlds where, we have dinosaur shifters, as well as all the other ones that you write, what do you do for fun?
So I used to say that I was a gamer, played games. It's kind of tapered off. At this point now, I'm one of those, like, if I'm not writing, I'm stressed about writing. So usually that's all I'm doing, which is not healthy. I need another hobby. But I recently got back into gaming a little bit. I played Stray, which is the newest game that just came out where you play as a cat, and it's more like a puzzle platformer kind of game. It's ridiculous. I loved it. I binged it for 3 days and beat it. I've got the new God of War comes out in November. So I've got to wrap up everything I'm doing because when that game comes out, everyone just needs to leave me alone. Like I love that series. So I do have some video game franchises I am 100% diehard about, and I will drop everything to play them until I'm done with it. So that's probably my only other real big hobby besides writing, other than like, I like eating, going for walks, but I mean, I need to find something else that's a creative outlet that's not writing, so I don't burn myself out, because I know that that's a threat. I haven't hit that point yet, but I would probably say gaming is my only other thing that I really like funnel all of my mental energy into. Okay.
And working with words all day, whether it's, the characters or the plotting and things like that, or listening and reading, what is your favorite word? Different from your favorite curse word, because that's the next part.
My favorite word.
Yeah.
Ooh. That's tough. I'm trying to think of. My brain's betraying me. Oh, you know what? It's coalesce.
Okay.
It's random as hell, and the reason I like it so much is because me and my husband play D&D. Well, you know what? We play D&D. I forgot we do that. We did that once a week. That's totally wasn't even in my brain. So we have a dungeon master named Alan, and he loves the word coalesce, and now I say it all the damn time. And so I will find a reason to use it, and it's because he uses it so much, now it's one of my favorite things to say. So we're going with coalesce.
Okay. So with that being said, what is your favorite curse word?
Probably twat waffle.
That's a good one.
Just because it just rolls off the tongue, and people stop being twat waffle. Stop it.
Yeah, I may have to borrow that one here and there. I know a few. Oh God, do I know a few? Perfect description, twat waffle. Got it. Perfect.
And you already know what that is. You know who's being a twat waffle.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I already know who I would put in the dictionary definition of it, Boom. Here you go. But I love that. I'm going to borrow it. The other thing I love doing with you guys as my guest is playing the game of Two Truths and a Lie. For various reasons. Not only do we get to know you better, but also see how creative and crafty you all are, aside from the gift of writing these stories, because y'all are tricky sometimes. And I love it. So if you can tell us what are your three things about you, and we have to figure out which one's the lie.
Okay, so here are my 2 truths and a lie. Number 1, I have accidentally kicked a shark. Number 2, I have been whisked off my feet by porn stars. And number 3, I have belly danced in front of a crowd for money.
Oh my goodness. I want to say all very plausible, by the way. Because it all depends. I mean, as a Floridian and someone that likes to go to the beaches, that whole kicking a shark possibly could have happened sometime in my lifetime. And you never know when you're visiting other places, or that they were even porn stars to begin with. So
you never know.
I know, right? Okay, so which one is the lie? Accidentally kick the shark, whisk away by porn stars, or belly dance in front of a crowd for money? Was the whisk by the porn star the lie?
It was not.
Ooh.
So
there's a story.
There is a story. So the lie is I kicked a shark. I've never been I've been in the ocean, but not near sharks because I'm deathly afraid of them. So if I did kick a shark, I'd never go in the ocean again. But the whisked away by porn stars, it was the GRL convention, I think in 2017. I was there as a reader, not as an author at all. I showed up, I went by myself because I had nobody to go with me. And they had the Cocky Boys, which is a gay porn site. They had some of their actors there, or their models, actors. And you could take pictures with them. So I was extremely tired and walked over and was just going to get just stand there. But they were oh, do you want us to do something funny? Because people were being they were leaning into it, just being full ridiculous, posing however they want. These guys were a treasure. I'm putting up with us just being total asses and being ridiculous. And I was no, I just want to stand like a person. And this guy named Alex Meacham, I think was his name. He was I can pick you up. And I said, what? And he just picked me up I was on the front of a romance novel and in his arms. And then I had 4 other hot guys fawning over me while he was holding me, whisking me off my feet. And I just was ah! And they got a picture of me looking extremely awkward with my feet in the air. It was great. So yeah, it was fabulous. I have the picture somewhere. I'll have to find it for you.
Yeah.
And then I used to belly dance a couple years back. I did it professional air quotes for about 3 years. And I used to perform at the Texas State Fair. And we did a whole belly dance routine out there, and I got paid for it. So it was pretty fun.
Nice. Of all 3 of those, I'm glad that those 2 were the truths.
Right? Yeah.
Totally. Totally so thrilled that those were the two. Yeah. Where was that event at?
It was, I think that was the one in Denver, Colorado, if I'm not crazy.
Because I thought they did one here
year.
in Orlando too. I missed it. I had some clients that were going to be there. Things.
Yeah, I think they did one a couple years back.
Yeah, years.
I don't
it's
remember.
Been a while.
It's been a hot minute. I know that they did. The ones I went to was Denver, then they went to Albuquerque, and then they went to Virginia, which is where they're going to be again this year, is in Virginia. Okay. And I think they're supposed to go back to New Orleans at some point, which would be super cool.
Oh, that would be fun.
So, yeah.
Talk about more stories for another session of Two Truths and a Lie.
Right?
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm glad, again, that those two were the truths.
Yeah. Let's not do sharks. No sharks.
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess, and potentially, but I'd much rather have the other two stories if I had to choose. So before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on? What's coming up next for you that you can share?
Yeah. So the next thing I have lined up is my newest series, which is an urban fantasy series. The series is called Wild Contracts. Wild is the last name of the main character. His name is Dallas Wild, and he is a moonlight assassin, also an exotic fish trainer, but he also kills necromancers and vampires. So this guy is kind of bonkers, kind of all over the place. Think Deadpool-ish kind of vibe, but with a mild drug problem and a problem with like committed relationships. So it's going to be a 3-book series. I actually am really excited because I was able to partner with a book box called Obsidian Flame Crate, and we're doing a limited edition hardback for this book.
Nice.
With like a cool illustrated cover and stuff. It's going to be really fabulous. So I'm really excited that we're going to launch with the box. So it's going to be very cool.
Yeah, I love it when that happens. You get a little bit of extra goodies as well as, limited edition copies of sorts. Those were always fun.
Yeah, I've worked with this book box before. The women who run it are fabulous people. They're big book nerds. They're putting a lot of really cool stuff into the box. So I'm extremely honored that they invited me and excited to see it launch.
Oh, and when more or less around what time do you think that will be as far as at least pre-orders?
The pre-orders should open up in September, and they do have a newsletter or like a waiting list that you can subscribe to on their website. I think it's obsidianmooncrate.com. You can jump on there and join their newsletter, so they'll let you know when the MM version of the box opens up in September.
Fantastic. You have a lot of stuff going on in September.
Yeah, I've got along with Allure, which is I'm ramping up and buying stuff for and getting ready, is that book box is going to start the pre-orders, and I'm hoping to be like signing off on done copies of the hardback and getting that proofs ready and stuff. So September is going to be packed. I'm very excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are always good times, but at the same time stressful.
Yes. I might be like knocking back some drinks at Allure. Don't judge me.
No, we won't. No. I think there's just so many different things that are happening at the event right now with first time authors and narrators going that have never been to a convention at all. Mm-hmm. Those that are coming back that it's been years since they've peopled in public. And again, it's the first time that it's this type of event where it's so specifically focusing on the audiobooks, and it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. The Fire and Ice Ball sounds cool. I got a dress for it. I'm so jazzed. It sounds like so much fun. They put a lot of really cool stuff into this con.
They do. They have. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'll definitely be seeing you on the red carpet since we're hosting that. And I'll have to see if between now and then I'll check in on you. So hey, how are the boxes going?
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Maddoz, for taking the time to hang out with me today. It's been so much fun.
Yes. Thank you again. This has been a blast.
Yep. I will be including all of as well as your website, so everybody can start getting all this lovely dinosaur, paranormal, and all this other fun stuff that you're writing with urban fantasies. I'm definitely someone that I love, PNR and fantasy. So I'm going to be diving into your books too.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, we'll be including all that information over at the episode's post at Viviana Enchantress of Books. And until next time, happy listenings.
Thank you to all of our Audiobook Lovin Podcast Patreon. Special thanks to Nixley Zenner, Carol Liebner, Brittany Robinette Leiter, Michelle Bastard,
Brandy Schmidt, April Branson.
The Audiobook Lovin Podcast has special Patreon access levels. Join today to receive benefits including early access to episodes, shout-outs, special exclusive content, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobooklovin. We thank you for your support.
Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. For links and more information discussed in today's episode, previous podcasts, or the Audiobook Lovin Series, please visit our website, vivianaenchantressofbooks.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a positive review wherever you listen to our podcast. Until next time, happy listening.